Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett, and for the first time in 2026, I am not speaking from a void of space and expanse and emptiness. I have company because I am here with Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. And because this is the first time we have been in the same social space during the year, I can be one of those increasingly annoying people as January goes on, going, Happy New Year, even though the year is well and truly underway. So, Happy New Year to Mr. Trinity himself. Good to be back.
Hello, hello. It's good to be back. Baz, it's lovely to be able to chat to you again on the podcast. Obviously, we chat outside of it and that, but I'm sure that everybody will love seeing your beautiful face, a face that everybody loves. And Dave will be very happy if you heard his comments on one of the previous podcasts because your beard is looking mighty fine.
Well, in terms of, I did have a slight, and because you come for your Villa content, but you stay for the daily routines of all of us hosts here. But I did have a bit of an accident um, a week or so ago with a new razor, which t took out a bit too much of the beard, and so it did have to go back relatively short to cover up the Borlix. So this is in the grow back stage, in terms of, we're on the comeback tour. It was a bit more resplendent a few weeks ago. But whether I'm going to weave that into Villa analogies during the course of this podcast, we will wait and see. But we are back for the first time this year. But a area platform that's never gone away is our X page at Talk Trinity, where we have been keeping you up to date with all of the latest Villa news, rumours, reports, previews. Plenty still going on in the transfer rumour mill, which we will touch upon later, no doubt. You can check out previous episodes on our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, some other places. We've been uploading episodes onto our YouTube channel. We've had some great guest episodes on. We had a few a couple of years ago. We're bringing it back. Check them all out on our YouTube channel. We got some great ones for you to enjoy, and we got some great ones coming up in the next few weeks and months, which, we're not going to spoil them for you now, but you are just going to have to keep an eye on all our social media channels and find out where and when you can enjoy it. But what you can enjoy right now, and what you probably have already enjoyed, is the post-match episodes from Will and Dave after the Fenerbahce game, where I'm glad to say that the Villa team took my optimistic preview of the chances to heart and went there and did a number on Fenerbahce, guaranteed qualification for the last 16. And we won't touch too much on it because it's go listen to the review episodes recorded after the game. But just say that was my perspective. I'll put in my two pennies. Seemed like all of the build up to the game just before kickoff, kind of the hostile atmosphere check in terms of the go to Turkey checklist, in terms of turning the music up when the Villa fans started to chant, whistling of the players as they were warming up, coming on, and then the game started. And there was one thing which I am kicking myself in terms of I should have realized this a bit earlier when I was doing my preview of the game. Unai Emery absolutely loves this competition. And in terms of, yeah, there was no mistaking that he was not messing around on Thursday. And in terms of how much he is held in high esteem, I did read via an article on The Athletic that after his post-match um, interviews with the Turkish press, every single one of them stopped him for a photo, for another chat on his way out. So he duly obliged. But yep, great win, great result. Last 16, onwards and upwards in terms of Europe. So yeah, go listen to Will and Dave for more in-depth analysis of the game. But we're going to focus our attention to Sunday at St James's Park when we go to Newcastle. And I think before we get into the, breaking down the teams for both sides, predictions, we have to throw in there well, I would say the elephant in the room, but it's more the magpie in the room, isn't it, for Newcastle?
Mm.
Our record there is crap. So in terms of when you see Newcastle away on the fixture list, what is your immediate gut reaction when you see that, Will?
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't realise just how bad our record was there, and it was only when I've seen on social media, in the last however many years, there's been this fewer draws, this many losses, no wins. And then Dave's messaged us both and he said, please make sure that you get in two things into this episode. One, the last time we won there was when they had three players sent off. Stephen Taylor with some amazing acting. I think the commentary on Match of the Day was it's as if he's been taken out by a sniper on the roof, which
Yeah.
probably wouldn't get into a Match of the Day edit nowadays. And Dyer and Bowyer had fisticuffs, didn't they? The other thing he wanted us to get on is that he now is considering legally changing his name to Dave, Marco Bizot, Dave.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he's obviously not on this episode to talk about the game. He said he thinks it'll be a 1-1. Unlike Unai Emery, we weren't able to get a replacement for him today like Emery did in Turkey. Newcastle just fills you with dread, doesn't it? I mean, when you play Newcastle at home, you feel that a little bit more. "Oh, get a result here. We do all right against them at home." But when you go to Newcastle away, and especially with their home form over the course of this season, you sort of think, yeah, this isn't going to be good. And you also hear Anthony Gordon hasn't scored in the Premier League for a year at
Hat trick.
home. Yeah. It took him 2 minutes last season, didn't it? Bruno Guimaraes might
Oh,
be injured, he might not be injured.
so I'll throw that in there now. I was going to save this, but I'm
Okay.
going to throw it in earlier. We've had, I know I've mentioned, I'm sure you and Dave mentioned previous podcasts, Villa's record when Kamara is not in the team.
Hmm.
To continue the use of the phrase, it's crap in terms of Villa's record about him. Kamara's been at Newcastle about 4 years. I saw this stat this morning. Would you like to hazard a guess of how many league games Newcastle have won since Kamara has joined when he has not been in the starting 11?
I know the answer will likely be different tomorrow evening if he doesn't start. It's zero, isn't
It
it?
is zero. That is so. Dave's called that. That's what Dave. He's played. Shout out to co-host Dave. I mean, in terms of you can't call Bizzo doesn't strike me as a dancer. He's more of a swayer, I would say. So you know, Bizzo sway. Bizzo doesn't quite have the same ring to it. But I can see why Dave's gone for 1-1 because Kamara's not going to play and we never win. If Kamara doesn't play, they never win. Literally never win. Draw. So we'll see if we agree with that later on. But that is a fantastic stat. But in terms of yeah, our record, as you say, at Newcastle leaves a lot to be desired. And I think
Mhm.
in terms of Newcastle generally this season, very much a Jekyll and Hyde team in terms of their home record as opposed to their away record. I mean, in terms of home record as of time of recording before the Saturday Premier League games, six in the home record, 23 points. So that's more than 2 points a game. Mass fans will tell you. So
Mhm.
good to continue our high in-depth analysis here. It's good.
Very nice.
Yep. Yeah. Away, bottom half of the form table of overall 10 points from 11 games. So mass fans will tell you that's less than a point a game away. So 1 and 2 at home, less than one away. Yeah, so we're very much the split personality. But in terms of overall recent form, combining that in the last 5 games, they are third in the form table with 10. So very good players on the day when they get it all together. More often that day occurs at home than it does away. They've got some interesting kind of foreshadowing of what might be, hopefully, and we'll touch upon the transfer rumors as we go on. But they are foreshadowing what might be happening at Villa in a sense. They've had one main man up front, Nick, we'll call him to his friends. They had Wissa in the summer, who's been injured for most of the time. Now back fit, back playing, working his way into the team. I think he scored a couple in midweek against Champions League. Don't care about Champions League, do we? It's all about the Europa League. But they are going to have that the cliche, the nice selection problem to have in terms of you've been playing a system. I know you could say it's a three up front, kind of Gordon, Barnes, kind of
Mhm.
coming off the flanks, but it's kind of that main focus point up front, like Villa have been playing, because they've only had one real player to do it. Now they've got two, and the talk about are they going to play them together or are they going to do the rotation? What do you think about Newcastle's strike options? Fill you with fear or a shrug of the shoulders, regardless of who they're playing in that number 9 role?
All attackers for opposition teams tend to fill me with a little bit of dread. I mean, we've defended a lot better than we did last season. Let's be completely honest. We felt like we would concede every single game last season. I think there's been a few that I haven't felt that we're conceding. Um, Great attacking options. If we're looking at the number 9 specifically, I mean, Voltemada for me is the one that you would play. He's adapted so well to the Premier League for Newcastle, scored some vital goals for them. Wissa, of course, knows the Premier League, played probably more as a winger at times for Brentford, not always the central striker. But if they have Bruno Guimaraes out, is it the time for Newcastle to go, do you know what? We'll have Tonali and Joelinton in centre mid. We'll keep Barnes and Gordon wide. And we'll go and try and attack Conser and Pau Torres with Voltemada and Wissa. And that would be a tough day at the office for the back four of Villa. I think it's going to be a tough day anyway with Gordon and Barnes because they're two wingers who like to get on the ball, like to cut inside. Newcastle are very good in that transition of opening up space on the other side of the pitch and getting the ball quickly into the feet of Gordon or into the feet of Barnes. And Barnes is on a bit of a scoring run, isn't he? I mean, his 2 goals against Leeds at St James's Park, where they never give up because the crowd get behind them and the away fans. It must be like a European game in many ways. One for the travel time, and two for the
Yeah.
fact that they're secluded up in the gods.
Well, when you say travel time, that's just getting from the ground floor up to the top where the way end is, and then never mind kind of actually getting to Newcastle.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got other players who are good attacking options, and they might not be at the level that Newcastle want to be at now. I mean, Jacob Murphy has had a decent season. He always does okay. He's injured for tomorrow. Joe Willock, when he joined them, was sensational to begin with, but doesn't really get the opportunities as much. And then, of course, they've got one of our own. Jacob Ramsey, who's found his way into the team, playing more as a central midfielder again, which he started out with at the Villa before moving out wide. So, yeah, there's cause for concern there, especially with Boubacar Kamara missing, but with Amadou Onana potentially back starting, and I would say Lamar Bogard as well. I don't understand the negativity around him. You'd hope that that would help create a core defensive six so that we can transition and catch them out a little bit because they're depleted defensively, aren't they? They don't have Liveramento. They don't have Shah. They do have a lot of other good players, but those are two players who would be starting for them, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of throwing a great stat, well, it's not a great stat. This is just going to be a put your head in your hands stat and accept the defeat type stat. Voltemada has not scored in the last 8 games for Newcastle. Hasn't scored
Mm.
since before Christmas. So he's guaranteed on a score sheet as well. So in terms of, I think you talked about, the way they're going to set up tactically the midfield, because you mentioned midfield. You're probably saying they're free, their first choice free, Gamares, Tonali, and Jolinton. That is a solid
Hmm.
midfield. And we're talking about in terms of how they transition, switch to play, try and get the opposite flanks involved quick. That is going to be the very interesting tactical battle because you look in terms of well known about how Villa like to attack with their fullbacks. They will, talk about Cash and whether it be Digne or Madsen. We'll come on to the Villa team a bit later. But in terms of Newcastle like to switch, Villa like to play with one going up. So that is going to be very interesting in terms of tactically how Newcastle look to exploit that and how Villa look to counter that. Because in terms of, as you allude to, we're going to have to be solid in defence. But I think in terms of, just touch upon those attacking options there. If you sit back for the entire 90 minutes against this Newcastle team at home with, kind of with their form and with that crowd pulling them on, I think, as to use your phrase, it's going to be a long day in the office in terms of if you play like that. So we've got to have some attacking front, and that's got to start from the back because that is the way Villa like transition. Talking
Hmm.
about talking about the defense, yeah, they've got a couple of big injuries in there, but in terms of their back four, in terms of their most recent game midweek at home in Europe against PSV, Trippier, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, apologies in advance. Tor, German centre back, Botman, Hall. That is a pretty solid back four, even with two injuries and Nick Pope back in goal. I know in terms of there was a whole in out, shake it all about. And that was just when Nick Pope was in the team dropping the ball. But in terms of he's been up and down with Ramsdale, so yeah, it looks like Pope's back. It's where in the popular press and the unpopular press, true too, in terms of the last year, and you mentioned Ramsey in particular has been used as a focal point for this. The comparisons between Villa and Newcastle in terms of the financial situation, in terms of having to sell prize young talent for Ramsey for us, Anderson for Newcastle pops up
Hmm.
as the ultimate example. The fact that the expectation when Newcastle were taken over by their own Saudi owners a few years ago was Moneyball kind of coming everywhere. They haven't been able to do that because of financial constraints. So they had a transfer kind of embargo. Um, so Newcastle are almost a couple, maybe a year, 2 years ahead, not in terms of on the pitch, but in terms of kind of that financial off the pitch comparison to Villa. So in terms of Villa haven't been on an official transfer embargo, but in terms of you may have heard struggle to sign some players in the summer because of having slightly less money than anticipated, not qualifying for the Champions League. So we've had that. Then we've had in terms of first half of the season when we've had our strongest 11 on the pitch. People have gone, that's a good looking team. We had a strong 16, you could say. I mean, you could argue about who the players in those were. When the few injuries have come in, it's been Villa ran out. That's looking a bit dicey. Unfortunately, that happened for Villa away in old money Highbury, Emirates, and nowadays at the worst possible time in the squad. So Newcastle are kind of that model, I suppose, in terms of, and they will say in terms of in terms of their squad, there are a few players short. They can't go out and splash as much cash as they want, and looking enviously over at their rivals, Chelsea, Man City, who got in just before the music stopped and were able to kind of could
Mm.
go and spend whatever they wanted. But in terms of yeah, despite the financial constraints that they have had, you have to say Howe has done a good job, which is similar to what we say about Emery. Except, you can have like a whole separate argument about who's a better manager, who's done more, who's turned, the water into wine, kind of all that type of stuff, or turned the water into Nuki Brown, kind of up there. But I think in terms of, I'd say from summing up Newcastle from, that overall global perspective, they have a very good team, despite not being able to have gone and splashed cash, and that is due comes from the top. I'll give Eddie Howe his credit, to be fair, because I think in terms of when he got the job a few years ago, I think there was a feeling outside of the club in particular that yeah, he'll be there until we get somebody sexier, somebody higher profile. But he's there and he's done a good job, and in my view, and I think in terms of looking at, we've gone through Newcastle team there, got a couple of injury concerns, but they're going to have a good team on the field on Sunday, whoever they pick. Which leads us back to, that's why we're worried, I think, about Newcastle at St James's.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there about Eddie Howe. Great manager. He's done a very stellar job at Newcastle. Got them back into the Champions League last season after missing out the season before, but being in it the season before that. We're doing a little bit of
Yep,
an okie dokie with them there, aren't
yep,
we? It appears at the moment. And it'd be nice to see both teams in the Champions League, to be honest. It's nice to see Villa and Newcastle pushing as hard as they can within PSR and SCR restrictions to break into the big six. Because let's be honest, both teams have been performing a lot better than some of the original members um, over the last couple of years. The thing I do feel about Newcastle, though, is whilst they've got that good, very strong starting 11, that on paper, you'd probably put in Livramento over Trippier, and Fowl or Shah is up for debate, really, isn't it? The midfield is one of the best midfield trios in the league, uh, on paper, in my opinion. Again, football isn't played on paper, appreciate that, but you would think that they could or beat most teams in the league with their starting 11. And it's the same. I think for us, our starting 11, strongest 11, doesn't get the same recognition. I think that people don't really appreciate just how good Matty Cash is. He's shown how excellent he is this season. We have the issues with left back, which I know we're going to get onto in a bit, where you don't know who's going to start, but everybody has a favourite left back out of the two. The centre backs, even that is still up for debate at the moment because of the form of Lindelof. And when you see Tyrone Mings pocketing John Duran as easily as he did during the week,
yep.
despite the resurgence of Pau Torres and Ezri Konsa. Our midfield too, who do you put alongside Boubacar Kamara? Is it Anana? Is it Tielemans? Usually. Where's John McGinn's best position? There's a lot of questions there, but I would say the point I'm getting to is, as good as Newcastle's starting 11 is, I don't really feel that they have the depth after that. They've got two or three players that they can bring on that you think, okay, that's a great substitution there. I feel for us, we have four or five players that you can bring on where you feel, okay, they're a game changer, in the words of a knobbish manager who's at top of the league at the moment. But those, so even looking at what our team will potentially be on Sunday, I feel that our bench will be stronger, especially with the return of, a lot of Villa fans wouldn't believe that we'd be saying this. I don't think many Villa fans would believe that they could fathom that they would appreciate the return of Leon Bailey from Roma. But if Leon Bailey can capture the form that he had a couple of years ago when we're a Europa Conference League season, he's one of the most exciting and best wingers in the league in that form. The problem is he hasn't been consistent, but the system we used then is the same system that we're using now. There was a slight tweak last season. It moved from that 4-2-2-2 attacking or with the wing, I know the wing backs get forward and that. It moved to a 4-2-3-1. So maybe with Leon Bailey back in and playing behind Ollie Watkins, potentially Tammy Abraham, because he's meant to be having his medical today in England ahead of a return to the club. Him playing with Tielemans and Rodgers, you bring him on against Newcastle, and if he's got the bit between his teeth and he's got a point to prove, that's probably a better player to come on than a Joe Willock, a Jacob Ramsey, in my opinion.
The return of Bailey, I think in terms of, yeah, I agree in terms of what you said there. In terms of Villa, they got, four or five and come off the bench can make a difference. The big caveat to that you have to throw in is when our squad is fully fit. When
Mm-hmm.
it's not, like you would with most teams, inevitably. That's not rocket science. If you have a lot of players injured, you have less good players. I mean, that's just obvious. So I think in terms of Bailey coming back in we got the injuries, we got the numbers. Emre said basically he knows the system, he's fit. So there was no termination provision in the loan agreement. We're paying him. He's not playing in Roma. Well, what is the worst that could happen in terms of having him back? We never play him. He never gets on the pitch. But he wasn't playing for us anyway when he was in Roma. So I don't, in Rome. So I don't think we don't lose anything having him back. I think in terms of you mentioned Cash in terms of this season and how he's progressed. He was an example of a player, whether rightly or wrongly, there was a lot of attention that has been on him in the last previous summer transfer windows about whether he's still going to be at the club, whether Emre fancies him in terms of does he think he's tactically disciplined enough to play the role that Emre wants him or wants a right back to do. He stayed, obviously, been in good form as you mentioned. Bundia last January goes out to Germany. Nobody expected to see him again, really. Let's be honest. Before
Yeah.
the deal would be activated, Leverkusen, goodbye, good luck, thank you for your service. When they don't want him, I think the most reaction of most Villa fans was, God, he must really have fallen off a cliff if life, kind of if Leverkusen don't want him. Weren't expecting him. I don't think Villa fans were expecting him really to have had anywhere near the role that he's had this season. But in terms of for Buendia, you got to hope that that is the blueprint for Bailey. Because in terms of Buendia, there was always the natural talent there. I think I got the Emre always liked him. Emre always thought he had the potential, but he could just never get it out. And so just kind of, and injuries happened. Obviously had a massive impact. Kind of drifted away really, kind of from the Villa first team squad. And now he's worked his way back, and he's certainly in terms of a squad player perspective, he's certainly earning his place, earning his keep. Bailey, in terms of that is a prototype to aim for. Because I think in terms of for Bailey, when he's on form, yeah, as you mentioned in terms of a couple of years ago, with the Derby as well, I think that was a factor, which losing him, well, say we lost him, well, you know, we didn't misplace him. We just took our money back and let him sail off. I think that was an impact as well as a change in system. Those two kind of came in tandem. Where the thing with Bailey, you mentioned in terms, and it makes logical sense in terms of he's got a point to prove, bit between his teeth, go out and get there. Last season, the thing is, when his confidence went, it went. like in terms of, I think it's not an apples for apples comparison, but in terms of Ollie Watkins, I think for me personally, you just kind of have to accept the Ollie Watkins cycle in terms of there'll be an 8-10 game run where you can't stop him. Then there's a run where his confidence is gone, not trying a bit too hard, just nothing happening for him. And we've kind of seen that this season, you could say. I think he wasn't quite as black and white as that because he was still doing good work for the team off the ball and hold up kind of stuff like that. But that was the easy narrative. When he's off form, he's off form. When he's on form, he's on form. And you just hold on for the ride and hope that the one period is longer than the other. For Bailey, it's he could never get back. He could never get back on the confidence cycle
Hmm.
once he fell off. And I think in terms of he's gone to Rome, went to Roma, didn't work out, not in the team there by the end, or even really kind of by the middle, really. So confidence isn't going to be high. And you wouldn't, it's just natural. Footballers are people too. So in terms of jettisoned off of Villa, went to Roma, jettisoned off back, it's just whether there is, and it's a two-way thing, isn't it? The Emre magic, and also can Bailey get himself up? I mean, in terms of if Jamaica are in the World Cup, that might have been an interesting motivator, but they might still be. I think there's a playoff couple of games in March, so that could be a motivating factor if they get themselves through to that. But yeah, for me, Bailey, roll of the dice, nothing to lose. If we get him back to halfway decent form, fantastic. Let's hope it is. But and we have the manager. If it is going to happen, we got a decent shot. In terms of the other player you mentioned, as of time of recording, deal has not gone through, but sounds like it will, touch wood in terms of the medical. Well, hopefully he hasn't got wood in his knees or something like that. The return of Tammy Abraham, and I'll put in my two pennies worth here. Previously, podcast a couple of weeks ago, I think I mentioned in terms of the Marlon Abraham situation, I would have liked to have both. Because I think in terms of the squad, but we can't be greedy. Marlon's gone. Abraham comes in, hopefully. Probably a bit too early for tomorrow, I would have thought. But in terms of, you never know. Could get him on his bike up to Newcastle. Could get him on the bench. Obviously, he knows the English game, so there's not too much of a culture shock going that way. He fits in better with what Emre wants from a centre forward. I think it's more so he fits in more in terms of that competition with Watkins. I think in terms of the financials, depending on how the rumor is Oscan is going as part of the deal to a six ass plus monetary compensation we're paying them as well. So depending on the way you look at that, you could say it's roughly the same price that we got back from Marlon. I don't know, it's disagreements about the figures, but roughly, we got like for like, and looks like we lost a player who never played, who was never going to play for us anyway. But by the looks of it, if you look at it in terms of that lens, basically we swapped Abraham for Marlon for the same price. Yeah, you can see why we did that deal, can't you? Really, because I think in terms of Abraham he's just a better fit, I think, for what Emre wants. So, let alone the history in terms of the playoff season. So, from that, if either or choice, I think we made the right choice. I would have liked both. But what are your thoughts upon the return of the prodigal son?
Think it would have been very interesting had Martin have stuck around as well, and we'd have brought Abraham in, because I think that would have spelt the end for Ollie Watkins after the World Cup, potentially, with Marlon and Abraham being the preferred two. But Marlon's gone, he wanted to be a number nine in his own right, went to Roma. 26 minutes later, he scored on his debut for them. Tammy Abraham as a deal, and there's a lot of ambiguity, isn't there, around the finances of the deal and other little bits where you've mentioned there Ozcan going. There's rumours that it's a 6 month loan. There's rumours that it's a permanent transfer. We won't know until we're told. But it's the same as the Marlon one. When Marlon went, Villa said it's a loan with an obligation, and Roma said no, we've outright bought him, or the other way round even. And it's all to do with that pesky PSR. You know,
Yep.
you unmask it. I'd have got away with it if it wasn't for you
Yeah.
kids and that dog type thing. All in all, though, I think the fact that Tammy Abraham is a proven Premier League goal scorer because he scored goals for Chelsea when he was under Lampard and they had their embargo, and people forget how well he did. Went into double figures there. He scored over 20 goals in the Championship for us, and that wasn't an easy feat because we were a struggling side for periods of
Yep.
that season.
Most of it, from
Yeah,
what I can remember, till
yeah.
about March, and then
He,
it kind of.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone to a different country in Italy, and he's proven that he can score goals at Roma. He's come back from a nasty ACL injury, and if it hadn't have been for that ACL injury, rumour has it that Unai would have brought him back to the club sooner. He went to AC Milan, didn't score too many goals there, but developed that hold-up play. He's gone to Besiktas, where they absolutely love him out there, scoring goals for them. Scored midweek last week, didn't he? That thumping header in a 3-0 win in the cup. The other thing is that you hear that Tammy Abraham has said there's only one team I'd have come back to the Premier League for, and that's Aston Villa. And when you
Yep.
consider the time he had at Chelsea and that he grew up there, that's a compliment in itself.
Yep.
He's coming back because he wants to get into the England squad. And the one player he's going to be competing with for that
Yep.
is Ollie Watkins. Um, because, Harry Kane's a shoe in. Watkins, you would think, is the natural understudy, but as you just said there, the season he's had, though I think he'll come good towards the end. And then there's the rumour that Tammy Abraham is on 115,000 a week at Roma, Besiktas, whoever it is that owns him. It's like a timeshare, isn't it? Tammy
Yep.
Abraham. Don't think that's his middle name though.
No.
But he said that he's reduced his wages. He might have only reduced them to 1,000 and 1,400 a week, but he's reduced them to come back to the Villa to get back into the Premier League, to play for a club that he loves. There's old videos resurfacing of when lockdown was happening, and we played Chelsea at home. We beat them 1-0. Bertrand Traore scored that fantastic goal in off the bar, and you can hear the few Villa fans that are in there singing, "Oh, Tammy, 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 Tammy Abraham," and he's come back and said, "I love you guys. Thank you very much." So I think all of that on its own, the fact that you've got this player who wants to better himself, for one, because he wants to be a proven Premier League scorer. He's older, he's coming into the prime of his career. He could be the long-term successor to Ollie Watkins. There's still a couple of years age difference there. Um, and he wants to play for our great club. I think with that, and the if it is 21 million euros, which is what, about 18 million, something like that, then that's a fantastic signing. Yes, Besiktas have brought in for 11 million euros and got quite a good, pretty much double your money. Fair play
Yep.
to him. Fair play. That's what he was valued at for them. Tammy Abraham comes back. My understanding is that he can't play anyway until the game against Brentford next week because of deadlines for signing, and he's also played in Europe this season, so he can't play on Thursday. But what an addition to the squad he becomes, and we've seen before with Ollie Watkins, there's been times where he has that competition, he gets the bit between his teeth, and he scores goals. It didn't always happen with Rashford last season, but it can only be good for us that we got a proper number nine. He's a striker, isn't he? Ollie Watkins is a striker, but he's more of a forward. Who gets the goals as well, more of a complete forward. If we're talking Football Manager, whereas Tammy Abraham, you put in that advanced forward poacher bracket, and if Tammy Abraham can come back to us and get close to 10 goals for the season in the Premier League alone, then he's going to prove good value for money. Add to that the other players that we brought in. Allison, who has unfortunately he's adapted really well to the Villa culture because he's injured.
Yep.
Um, as a midfielder, him and Bailey out on the right, we get to see the best of Evan Gassond. Will we see more from
Well, we'll
him now?
will we see him based on some of the rumors going around in terms of potentials swap
Yeah.
deals, whether that's more or less likely now with Abraham coming in, you'd suspect so, but you
I
never
mean,
know.
I think that it'll be telling for Ollie Watkins if we bring another striker in, won't it? We don't need to. We've got people who can play up front. But if we were to bring in a Mateta in a swap deal for Gassond, as has been rumoured, or Goncalvo Ramos from PSG, as has been rumoured as well, then it sort of spells the end for him. But no, I'm excited about Tammy Abraham coming back. I'm excited about all the signings that we've made, even the ones that we know are for the future. Um, so yeah, yeah, great signing. Be great to see him back. Hopefully on Thursday night we get to see him on the pitch at half time or before the game, holding up the scarf.
Nope.
You know,
Well, you could just bring his one from last time.
yeah, and maybe who knows? Maybe we'll see some other familiar faces returning to the Villa if rumours are to be believed.
And yeah, I think it's a great deal. Really happy to have him back. And you've probably seen this stat going around, social media, other places. But just to throw it in there, Tony Abraham is, as of time recording, the third highest all-time English scorer in Serie A. Do you know who's second and who's first?
English.
Yep,
Oh, how many goals did Tammy Abraham get?
29 in his
20.
entire Serie A career.
Do you know what? I've got absolutely no clue, but I'm going to go for only English or British.
English.
Uh,
The stat doesn't work if I extend it out to British, so specifically English.
I the only person that I can actually think of, the only two players that I can think of that are English that played in Serie A, and it's really bad knowledge from me, are Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Paul Gascoigne. And I doubt that either of those are above him. Maybe Gaza, but he was only at Lazio for a season, wasn't he? So,
Yep. In terms of Gascoigne has six, so
yeah.
he's 18th on the list I'm looking at, and Loftus-Cheek has seven, so he's 15th. If in
Consistent with my guesses.
Interesting in terms of Keenan Davis is 11th with nine,
Hmm.
but in terms of the reason I picked this stat, listeners will probably know where I'm going with this.
David Platt.
Yep, he's second,
Uh,
and top of the all-time Serie A list for English players is Jerry Hitchens, who Villa sold to Inter Milan back in the early 60s. So we have the top three. Trevor Francis is fourth, but we'll ignore him. And,
I
and
don't
Mark
think it's
Haitley,
very
Mark
fair
Haitley is
because
there as well. He's fifth. He also has a Villa connection. So there's quite a lot of Villa connections in terms of Chris Smalling is on the list with nine. Yeah, it's Ashley Young has five. Ealing Jr. has three. So yeah, that's an interesting list. But in terms of Villa with Abraham coming back, well, and before top three in terms of all-time English Serie A scorers. So
but
uh,
football didn't begin until 1992, Baz. How has
it
that happened?
it didn't. So Abraham number one. He's number one all-time scorer. We've called it there. In terms of British, if you're throwing in British, John Charles is top. But he's
Okay.
he's Welsh. So in terms of we can't segue Welsh into the Villa preview of our team because I don't think we haven't got any Welsh players. We haven't got Mark Delaney to call up, but in terms of the fullback situation, we mentioned Cash. You're anticipating he will be playing on Sunday, so not really much of a controversial selection call. But in terms of fullbacks, and you alluded to it earlier, the interest is on the left, and in terms of Luca Digne, Ian Matson. I think it's fair to say, start of the season, it was Digne's position. Matson has had more of a starting role in the last month or so. what you thinking about that um, battle, as it were?
Always at the moment, Ian Martson for me. And that's a shame. Luca Dean has been a fantastic servant for us. I think that he's important in certain games, but now would be that time with Dean's age that I would be starting to transition Ian Martson into the team. It seemed at the back end of last season, in that last 10 games where we did fantastically well and he started the majority of them, that he was going to hit the ground running and become our first choice left back with Luca Dean as second choice there. And obviously didn't sign a new contract. Maybe he had something inserted in it. I jest. But I go with Martin. I think he offers more from an attacking standpoint, and that's what you need from your fullbacks nowadays. He can overlap, he can invert, he can stretch the pitch. He pops up with goals that aren't just set piece goals as well. I know Luka didn't scored a couple of not set piece goals for us, but the ones that stick out, the free kick against Man United, you know. Um, whilst Dean might be that little bit better defensively, I just feel that football nowadays relies a lot on pace as well of players and being able to get into your recovery transitions, recovery sprints. And when you've got an Ian Martin tracking back, you feel confident that, we can get our defensive shape back. Um, so yeah, it'd be Ian Martin for me all day at the moment. No offense, Luca.
No, I mean my view of that is, yeah, you mentioned in terms of the summer, Dinya new contract. Rumors were that it was a reduced salary to assist with financial fair play, but there's been, especially looking back a couple of years ago when Moreno was here, and there was a feeling that Dinya was on his way out. There's been always a few occasions where it's been Dinya on the way out, and then somehow he's always worked his way back into the team. And I think my view from looking from the outside perspective, the reason why Madsen hasn't quite up until relatively recently kind of established himself as the first choice, and you might say he's still not the first choice now. I think it's in terms of that tactical element priority that Emre demands. And my outside perspective is that Emre hasn't quite been able to trust Matson enough in terms of the tactical demands of what he wants from that position, and he
Mm.
can with Dinya. I mean, in terms of you know that scene a few years ago where Dinya wasn't even playing and Emre was barking orders at him on the subs bench in terms of that. So Dinya is well drilled
Yeah,
in terms of what Emre wants, and you know what you know what you're going to get. I mean, yeah, if there's that sliding doors with Moreno potentially when if what would happen there, but Dinya is being a consistent player. You know what you're getting, and with Emre in a style of coaching which is very much repetition. We're going to do this again and again and again and again until it becomes second nature. Somebody who's been there and done that for a number of years is evidently going to be the front runner in terms of in an Emre system. So I can, in that sense, I can see that is why Dinya has had the majority of the starts since Madsen's been there. I think in terms of this transitioning period appears to me to be Emre now signaling, yeah, he thinks Madsen is up to it in terms of the consistency of the demands. But I think in terms of the old cliche, or one of the old, many cliches available, one of the old cliches of football was make sure you have two good players for every position.
yep.
And I think we do in terms of that, in terms of that left back position. I think they're both solid options. I think in terms of it's, yeah, I think for Madsen, I agree in terms of the attacking bit of the game was never, that wasn't the question mark really. I mean, in terms of, we've had games where I think he played like left wing kind of, kind of as part of that three. So he was always more comfortable going forward than he was going back. And I think in terms of when you're playing in the high pressure games against good teams that Villa have been in the last couple of years, I think that's where the question mark was for Emre in terms of I know what I'm going to get from Dinya. I don't know what I'm going to get from Madsen. So I think in terms of you'd say that changing of the guard, his age, he's relative, he's still young as well. He's played a lot of games, Madsen. in Champions League, even before it
Mhm.
came to Villa. So I think that transition to me is a good sign. I think in terms of Emre must think, yeah, he's ready now. And I think in terms of it's that yeah, it's that 90-minute discipline for Madsen. And if he can get that in his game, then he's going to be very good fullback, first choice fullback for us going forward. But yeah, I think they both still definitely have a role to play. I'd anticipate in terms of for tomorrow, yeah, I'd agree. I'd anticipate Madsen will play just because in terms of the threat of the two wide players from Newcastle, and as you mentioned, the transitions going from one to the other. You do need the recovery pace. You need the awareness. I think the positional awareness for Madsen is going to be a real key point to watch tomorrow in terms of for that 90 minutes. Another
Mhm.
cliche. It only takes 2 seconds to score a goal. So you break that line once, we're in trouble. So I mean that'd be a good test of where he is. And so I think in terms of what you could say another potential selection battle is in the center of defense. Because in terms of you can have a scenario where it seems to be diametrically opposed statements are true. So I'm going to throw this out to you. The first one you're going to love because I know you're a big fan of Torres. I think it is, and you can in terms of the eye, we might have to talk about Everton potentially for 2 seconds, but in terms of with the eye test and all the stats, Villa are a better team with Torres in it than not.
Mhm.
That is true, is my view. What may be diametrically opposed to be true with Voltemeda, anticipate playing up front, or Vissa, is a more is more in terms of physical strength at the back is Mings and Lindelof, Mings and Konza. What kind of that physical is that going to be more effective in this scenario than Torres, or do we just say we are a better team with Torres because of the transition, and you have to take the mistakes, the comedy act at Everton on Sunday. Do you say, look, we are a better team with Torres in, so he's playing no matter what, and kind of not fingers crossed, but kind of hope the physical side he's going to be able to deal with, or do you go, look, let's match, let's go physical, let's get Mings in. You mentioned he had Duran in his pocket, let's get Mings, Konza, get him back. How would you go?
Pau Torres all day, every day. He's the new Danny Ings in the fact that for me, yes, everything you said there about Tyrone Mings makes sense. Even a Victor Lindelof on the left side defence, he did fantastically well when he was in the side. But Pau Torres, the thing that he brings to the team is that calmness on the ball, isn't it? We know that Newcastle are a team that will press, and we've struggled against them pressing us previously. But if he can play through the press, which is very good at slowing the play down and then getting round his man, and with Newcastle, with Tonali potentially drifting wider to try and get onto the ball and becoming sort of like a half winger, half quarterback type of player, then, and you never know with Newcastle what they're going to do fullback wise. Are they going to invert or are they going to push on down the wing? If Pau Torres can then step up into that defensive midfield, DLP, deep line playmaker, football manager fans, again, another one for you, score it off in your bingo card. He can get the ball into those final thirds, and he's a danger man. He's a pre-assister. You get him on the ball, and then Martin gets down the wing. He'll find him, and you'll find him quicker than Mings. I feel that as good as Mings can be on the ball, sometimes he delays a little bit too much, whereas Pau Torres has that Unai Emery urgency because he's worked for him so much. And it takes some of the pressure as well then off of Yuri Tielemans to always be playing those balls into the final thirds. We don't really have many other players from a defensive point of view who can pass like he does. I mean, that aside, that being said, Matty Cash played an absolutely beautiful through ball on Thursday night to Morgan Rogers, but it's few, and he's played a couple of great passes when you think about the Tottenham goal against with Buendia at 3 Point Lane, where we won 2-1 in the league. But really, Pau Torres, for me, is vital as an Aston Villa player, not just a defensive player, not just in an attacking sense either. And we are a better team with him in it. And it's a shame for Tyrone Mings in many ways. He's been very unfortunate with injuries. There's always been the question mark of, oh, will he come back this time? And he has done superb on Thursday, but you give it to Pau Torres against Newcastle, and then when you play Salzburg in the week, that's when you can rotate Tyrone Mings back into the starting lineup as captain if you need to. So yeah, I think for the tactics that Newcastle will play against us with the high press, potentially going man for man, getting Pau Torres on the ball and getting him to bring it forward. You know, you saw his cross for Matty against Arsenal in the 2-1 win. Playing balls into that final third will help us massively on the transition against Newcastle. And I think that that's got to be our tactic. I imagine that we'll sit quite deep with two banks of four, drop into that 4-4-2 when we're defending, and then as quickly as possible, we'll break on Newcastle and we'll get as many of the three behind Watkins forward alongside him with somebody like Amadou Onana, if he starts, carrying that ball forward, because we've seen in recent games that Onana has played in and the ones that he's missed, how good he is at carrying the ball now. It's something he's developed really since he's been at Villa. He's very much a defensive player for Everton, but he's key to our transitions as well. So yeah, I'll go Pau Torres. Are you Pau or are you Ty?
I'll jump on your kind of deeper philosophical point in terms of you mentioned it's not just about starting 11, it's about the way what this Aston Villa team is as an overall identity. And I think in terms of this, well, not just this season, in terms of, yeah, we'll leave Everton aside, but in terms of home fortress, in terms of the numbers are that almost unbelievable that they almost go off the shoulder now in terms of the stats, the amount of games we win.
Mhm.
It's become so second nature, it's extraordinary. But in terms of this team is third in the Premier League at time of recording, still in cup competitions. But I think I mentioned in terms of a few weeks ago when my ill-fated play your strongest team against Spurs, we won, but at what cost? Which is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
This team needs to learn how to win, as in get over the line in terms of a cup competition and counter. Kind of you only do that by winning. And I think in terms of if you're looking at the league, which I suppose is the ultimate aspiration, how do you get to that? Within that semi-final, quarter-final, top four, top five. How do you get to that final step in terms of to be that title championship trophy winning team? We touched earlier, we can't do it by buying our way to it because of the financials. We've got a manager who's, I would say, the best of opinions available, but we'll ignore him. Best coach in the league in terms of taking existing talent
Hmm.
and transforming it. I mean, in terms of people say Guardiola's best coach in the league, but spending like 500 million pound helps in terms of that. So, how are we going to get that difference that is going to take us above other teams to win stuff? It's not money. It's got to be the coaching. Okay, so then you're breaking it down in terms of the style that we want to play, and you're things you're talking about there in terms of the transition, in terms of the way you want to play. You can see the way Villa are trying to play. And when it works, it works. It always gets highlighted when it goes wrong. Like Liverpool away gets highlighted, kind of the old school, what you're doing, pissing about at the back, type of things. I think there's probably a slight separate issue in terms of that. We talked about, I mentioned that Everton goal, Torres, Martinez. There's good. It's not scapegoat is the wrong word because it's not going to be immediate, but there's going to be one long-term casual casualty of that, and it's not going to be Torres.
Hmm.
So in terms of for Villa getting to that next level. we're not going to outspend them. We've got to outplay them. And if you maybe not got inverted commas the best talent, you got to have the best tactics, the best style of play, or an effective way. The way Villa play under Emre literally goes through Pau Torres.
Mhm.
And so, in terms of a question of, I suppose, the physical side of it, I threw out there in terms of do you match up physicality like for like? Yeah, it might work tomorrow if you played Mings. He might have a great game, and he steps in. He does, you know, professionalism not in question with Mings. Character fantastic. You know what you're going to get with Mings. Brilliant. Addy has been a great servant for this club. We've done other podcasts, to talk about our views on things. In that long term, or hopefully not too long term, of getting Villa to be a championship title winning team, it's going to be that system. And Emre's got Torres is an integral part of that system. So to answer the question, you got to play him in terms of the big games because you can't say we got this system apart from when we were playing against a big burly centre back, centre forward, and then we might drop him because he's not physical. You got to go with it. Will we end up winning stuff? Maybe not. Maybe. We hope so. But if you're committed to it, you got to be committed to it. And so he plays for me. He plays with Konza. And we see where we go. He might have a good game, might have a bad game. But I think in terms of the system, is going to be the system. And you need Torres playing. In terms of Anana, you mentioned him, and I would transition. He starts for me, especially with Kamara injured. I think it's an absolute well fitness. Obviously, fitness is the big thing if he's
Mhm.
fit. I'm saying this on the assumption that he's fit to play 90 minutes or at least three quarters of the game. You play him because I think in terms of as you say, especially with Kamara, he doesn't do the same job as Kamara. Kamara he's like he's the pickpocket like from Oliver Twist in terms of Kamara's role. Does the unseen work, and we said the stats will. The stats will be said ad memoriam in terms of when he doesn't play, we don't win. But absolutely integral for this team. And Anna brings something different. And you've lost something very key in Kamara. You got to try and replace it with something that is going to be effective in its own way. And that is, as you say, the transition from Manara driving forward is a lot better than he was. I think we mentioned in terms of in the summer. This is going to be the season where we need him to step up. You didn't want it in this way in terms of Kamara being injured, but we were talking about these are the big games. Anana is going to play a part, and he will, and he should, in my view. So Anana starts for me, and then I think in terms of we have that flexibility tactically in terms of do you drop Tielemans or do you play him as a 10? I would go. I'll throw mine in there. I think you drop Tielemans for this game and play him alongside Anana. What do you reckon? Would you go along with that, or are you going to throw fans' favourite Bogard?
I'm going to throw Bogard in there alongside Anana because I think the way that I see Anana and Kamara, I agree in that they're not the same type of player, but I think there are a lot of similarities there as well. They can both defend and block, and we've seen Kamara this season put his foot in and then advance with the ball. We saw that rocket he scored against Wolves. He's not dropping into a back three as much anymore as he used to. And Anana's the same. He'll pick a pocket or two, and then he'll move forward with the
He'll just
ball.
grab the bag, Anana. He won't go for the pocket. He'll just like push you out of the way, grab the bag, and
Just take all your
yip,
clothes
yip, yip,
off.
yeah, off you go.
Um, and for me, I think against this Newcastle team, regardless of whether Bruno Guimaraes plays or not, they've still got two really strong, bullying, like physically strong central midfielders in Tonale and Joe Linton. Whoever plays alongside them,
Yep.
I would have Lamar Bogard in there because I think that he would be able to take more of the press and the tackling and the pressure on him than Tielemans would. And the reason for that is you see the stats of Bogard that he's got one of the highest passing percentages when he's under pressure with the ball at his feet of completing his passes. He's a defensive minded player, so he can allow Anana to push that a little bit further forward. He doesn't mind having the ball at his feet and moving with it as well. He's very confident there. He's probably a little bit more mobile than Tielemans, I would say, only slightly, only slightly. Whereas I think that with Tielemans and the footballing brain that he has got, if you play him in the cab, where he's played his best football this season, it means he doesn't have to really do the defensive side as much, but he might drop back in to make a free in midfield where we need him to. It also allows, and I'm a big believer of this, your best passers, Pau Torres aside, your best passers and creators you want as high up the pitch as possible, as close to their penalty area. That if you've got someone like a Yuri Tielemans who you can put in the 10 role and keep Anana and Bogard in the middle of the park to do the dirty work, then that's what we should go for. The only time I'd change it up, and I think Emery was fantastic on Thursday with his team selection, is when you've got players like Buendia who are going to really go and attack and put a lot of pressure onto a defence. Should we be doing that against Newcastle? I don't think so. As I say, I think it's going to be a game of sitting back a little bit and transitioning, catching them out and trying to take our chances and hopefully getting that first win at St James's Park for a while. So for me, I would have those as a three: Bogard, Anana, Tielemans. And then I'd have Rodgers out to the left. And I'd put Jadon Sancho in on the right wing. I think Jadon Sancho at the moment is feeling confident. You saw his quotes probably during the week about how he's feeling and how he just wants to get better and he wants to improve for the Villa. He wants to help us win something. He's obviously got his eye on the England squad and he's quite a long way down the pecking order. But
Yeah.
if you can get that Borussia Dortmund Jadon Sancho back, then he offers something different that other wingers for England don't offer. The closest one's probably Noni Madueke, and he's been in recent England squads. If you're putting Tielemans in centre mid alongside Anana, who are going to be your three behind? And I'm assuming, and I know we shouldn't assume because of the old saying, who are your three behind Ollie Watkins?
Well, I think in terms of your selection of the wings there, I think have really hit upon the crux of the team selection in terms of that midfield three for me. Because I think in terms of Sancho, there's been a lot of positive comments about him throughout the course of the season from Emre, even when he hasn't been starting games consistently. Is Thursday night his breakout party?
Fantastic goal.
Good finish, and in terms of had a great game. In terms of the team selection, where I think that plays in terms of if Sancho is on one wing and Rodgers is on the other, then I would agree with you, and I would put Bogard alongside Anana for a bit more defensive protection in terms of there, because you've got two players who you, especially in terms of when you say you're going to be looking to break at speed, you're going to be looking to plan a transition. You want them facing towards the Newcastle goal
Yeah.
rather than facing back at us. So I think in terms of if that's the play in terms of those two up front, then yeah, I can see why you play Bogard. I think in terms of if we go down the other route, which you indicated you wouldn't, in terms of you playing Bundia kind of up front, you kind of that number 10 role. I'd play Tillemans um, alongside Anana because I think in terms of as you mentioned, I think Bundia does the Harrier role enough to be able to get Tillemans, get his head up, and then you've got Bundia who can spot a pass as well. So you got that lane. I think in terms of the right blend of aggression, but also bang, bang, bang through, like like with Spurs in a cup game to an extent. So I think that is the key decision in terms of our team selection about what way we go in terms of it. I mean, in terms of injuries, yeah, McGinn's not playing, is he? Which is a shame. We don't at time of record, we don't really know how long he's injured for. Hopefully not too long. But that's another one to the list. But Yeah, I think I'll give it to you, Will. I think you persuaded me on that one. If we're playing Sancho and Rodgers, then yeah, you play Bogard at the back and alongside Anand, and then you put Tillemans up there. So if that's the way we're going to go, if we're going all in, we'll go with that. Because in terms of what Mike make, Dave nod with approval. We're not going to play gas on, are we? So I think in terms of we'll have him coming off the bench, and then I think with the the injuries that we have, then yeah, kind of the rest of the team picks itself. So
I think the one thing I would ask though, and I agree the rest of the team does mainly pick itself, but what's happening with the goalkeeper scenario? Because, you know, before we played Fenerbahce, we heard that Emi Martinez hadn't travelled with the squad. It got leaked through the press. I don't really remember Unai Emery saying it before. I know he did in the press conference, but I think that the press had already come out and said Emi Martinez hasn't travelled with the squad. Marco Bizot came in for the second time in the Europa League this season. He made 8 or more saves and kept a clean sheet. Only one other time has that happened in the Europa League this season. And of course, Marco Bizot was in goal and that goalkeeper again against Feyenoord away. Is it just that Emi Martinez is allowed to go on a holiday now during the week when we have matches and um, rest his back or his calf or head, shoulders, knees and toes, whatever injury it is that he's got? Or is he genuinely out because we haven't heard anything about him before this game? And does he deserve to come back into the team? I mean, it's sort of a paradox to what we are saying about Pau Torres and what you hit the nail on the head perfectly. I think we've if you want to try and win and you can't spend the money, you get a system, you get the belief in the system with the players that know the system, and you get results that way. Leicester City did it a few years ago. They showed the world that they could go and win the league. They won the FA Cup as well. Did fantastically. Other teams have adopted systems and played very well. I know that we don't like Tottenham at the moment, especially Paulinho, because of what he's done to Kamara. But when Pochettino was there, he had a system with Rose and Walker where they drop into a back three with Eric Dyer dropping in and they push on. It worked brilliantly for them. They were very successful. Alex
I was being
Ferguson had
harsh. I'd
it.
say they didn't win anything.
No, they
Being harsh.
didn't. They didn't. But they got to finals and
Yeah.
they challenged. They established themselves as a big six team in that period. Ferguson did it. Wenger did it. They had their ways of playing. We have ours. But is the goalkeeper as crucial to that? Is it? Would you keep Marco Bizot in? Do you see Emi Martinez coming back into the team? Or is there going to be a twist in the tail with Martinez? Because there are rumours about Inter Milan. If he doesn't play, is it a strong indication that actually he might be on his way in this transfer window ahead of the World Cup, especially after Jan Sommer's indecisive performance for Inter Milan against Pisa the other night?
I think Martinez. I think that's going to be a summer thing. Famous last words. And I think in terms of, and I say that because of the Bizzo situation. You're saying about the rotation Thursday, Sunday. I think you play Bizzo every Thursday because you never know if you're gonna need him to be fit for the Sunday because Martinez has a habit of kind of late injuries. So I think Bizzo playing Thursday at least and he stepped in pretty well. Kind of when he's had to, but in terms of at least there'll be more consistency that way. So I'd put him. It used to be you'd have your cup goalie, wouldn't you? And then kind of your league goalie. So I'd play Bizzo as the Europa Liga goalie, yeah, to manage Martinez in terms of fitness, and also just in case you need him to play again on the Sunday as well. So I do that. For Martinez, why I think it's a summer situation, and I think in terms of again, there's a bit of uncertainties whether Inter's looking for a deal now or in the summer. Depends what the fight. It will come down to money you'd anticipate in terms of what any deals on the table. But I think unless the deal is right for us to sell him now, we keep him because in terms of keep Martinez because whether it's the most important bit of the system, I think is a different question, but it is clearly a part of this system of playing out from the back, of which you start from the goalie. And I think in terms of Bizzo, that's not his stronger point. I mean, he's not terrible at it, but in terms of if you're going to make a list of the top goalies with the ball at their feet in the Premier League, he's probably not. He's not near the top of the list. So I think in terms of Martinez, clangers aside, does know the system, has played in it, does know what Martin Emre wants in terms of that. So I think if you're going to take that component out, you do that in the summer when you got. I mean, the World Cup does throw a bit of a curveball into it, but your range of options for who to plug in as a ball playing goalie is going to be more expansive in the summer, and you got more time to train them up into the Emirates system. I think doing it now, midway through the season, when you're going to play Bizzo, you got that transition goalie, but I think it'd be a big change to the way this team is set up to jettison Martinez now, unless the deal is too good to turn down. So whether that means he deserves the divine right to walk back into the team whenever he's fit. No, because I think you do base it. You need to base it on performance, and I think in terms of I was reading somewhere in terms of people focusing on his clangers this season, he was making them last season as well.
He was better this season than he was last season.
Yeah, so I think in terms of there's the feeling, and and again, this is just kind of outside looking in. Martinez has been a fantastic when you take the whole era, the Villa era. He's been a fantastic goalie for Villa. I think there's been some ups and downs, but I think in terms of he's definitely been a net positive for this team. And there's been lots of great moments with him. We've all got, I mean, Lille away,
Mm.
up there for me springs to mind. But it strikes me in terms of we get to the summer, if there's offers on the table, we shake hands. Thank you very much for your service. Come back whenever you want. I think it feels like we've reached that time, but I wouldn't do it now. Would be for me. But in answer to your question, who do you play Sunday? Bizzo. I don't really blame him, but I think that for me that question is less integral for the rest of this season. We sort it in the summer, we get somebody else in because Bizzo strike. He stepped in admirably, but I think in terms of he didn't come to be first choice. I think he said that in terms of interviews. And it almost whenever he gets rolled out into the team, it's a bit like is it Lethal Weapon where well, I think the Danny Glover character just goes, I'm too old for this shit. I feel that's like Bizzo in the changing room when he gets told 10 minutes before the game he's got to play. He's just like, oh man, can't keep doing this. So yeah, so it's a summer issue for me. I'd look at changing then if the finances are right. Bizzo's more than able. I'd play him in the Europa. I'd probably play him Sunday. But in terms of, so we got the team kind of sorted between us. We'll see what tactical tweaks and setups Emre has. We're coming to prediction time. You mentioned Dave's prediction is a draw. We'll start with the optimistic side. We anticipate, although we're both wary of Newcastle. What are you thinking in terms of score for this one?
I'm going between two scores, and both scores would make a very entertaining game for neutral fans. I think there are going to be a lot of goals. I'm going to remain positive, and I'm going to go Newcastle 3, Aston Villa 4. I was going to go for a 3-3. I think it's going to be a 4-3 thriller. Back to that days of Dwight York's hat trick and then the fourth one disallowed. I think we I think we do enough to beat them. Though I think there'll be some late drama with a late Newcastle goal and pressure on us, but we just about see it through. It's about time that Unai Emery broke this curse that we had. Come on, Unai, you've done all the other ones.
Yep. I'd say in terms of well, Thursday aside, my recent streak was a predicting Villa wins, and often quite questions were being asked in terms of checking if I was okay, in terms of the burst of positivity that was coming. Though it's not negative bag, it's reasonable Baz, as has been pointed out. But we've got a win prediction. We've got a draw prediction. Maybe just I think just to complete the spread in terms of just to complete the ticket. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. I think in terms of the turnaround time is a bit of an issue. Newcastle have had extra time to prepare. It's a place we never win. Yeah, it's gonna be tight. I think both teams will score. They will. Yeah, I think the game would decided in the last 15 minutes of this one. But yeah, 2-1 Newcastle. But in terms of then we'll get back on the positive bandwagon for the Premier League in February. But in terms of a bandwagon you don't have to wait to jump on is our X page at Talk Trinity, which is a beacon of positivity because Mr. Trinity runs it. So you'll be keeping up to date with all of the latest news transfers. Hopefully, we'll be able to, but hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, the Abraham deal's been concluded. Might be some other ones in the pipeline there as well. I think it'd be an interesting last week or so in the transfer window from a Villa perspective. You can check out all of our previous audio episodes on our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, some other places. YouTube is where you get to see our delightful faces. Go back through the years. You can see how Father Time has treated us. If you want, if you've got a couple of hours and you're like, I literally have nothing better to do in my time. What can I do? Let's go and look at those lovely lads in terms of how they've gone. Or you can just watch our fantastic interviews with our special guest stars and keep your eyes peeled for a few teasers over the next few weeks in terms of future ones as well. But before I pass you back to that eternal flame of optimism that is Mr. Trinity. Hope you enjoy the game on Sunday. We're recording Saturday afternoon, so if you go in the game, hope you're enjoying the journey which you're setting off right now, probably to get yourself up to Newcastle in time for kickoff. Watching it at home in the pub. Hope you enjoy it. Hope I'm wrong. Hope we win. We'll be back again anyway. Supporting a Villa, come what may. See you soon.
As Baz says there, you can listen to us and you can see our beautiful faces at a host of social media sites. And as you mentioned, those of you making a long journey to Newcastle, as this is coming to the end of the episode, if you started the episode as you sat on the coach, you're probably in Newcastle now.
You're welcome.
Coming
You're
in.
welcome.
We've helped you pass that time. But in the words of the great song Father and Son, you know the reference. It's not time to make a change. However, in the world of Unai and Yuri, it's time to make improvements, and we need to improve that record at St James's Park. So check back next time to see whether we're able to come away from Tyneside with another massive dub, whether D for Dave was a draw or whether Baz was correct in going back to being negative. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much.